This week, the governor took time out to speak with our focus group. Check this out.
So please welcome New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
Okay, why are you the candidate to defeat Hillary Clinton? Everyone at 50? Hold on.
Yeah, all right.
Go.
Listen, I want you all to picture next September. And you know how Hillary Clinton will be on that stage. She will change her positions. She will not want to be held accountable for anything that happened that was bad during her time, and she wants to get credit for everything that she thinks was good. Who's the person who's going to best get up on that stage in a clear, concise, experienced, ready manner is going to prosecute the case against Hillary Clinton? Who is just going to take it apart bit by bit by bit, not by yelling and screaming, not by insulting her or calling her names, but just look at her right in the eye and say, Mrs. Clinton, you know that's not true, and here are the facts. 1, 2, 3. Who's going to be the person who's going to be strong enough, because she's going to come at you like a tornado, who's going to be strong enough to stand up there and do that, and who's going to be tested enough to not overreact and not give her the moment she wants? And I'm telling you that being in the hardest media market in the world, in New York City, the most biggest liberal media market, as a conservative Republican for 13 years, there's nothing she can throw at me on that stage that hasn't already been thrown at me before. I am ready to take her on and take her out, and to do it in a way that's effective and keeps her no closer than 10 miles from the White House. We can't have her anywhere near there.
So 70 is a good response. With the more moderate people, you're in the 80s. So only one of you walked in here supporting Chris Christie. I know more of you do at this point. What do you want to know from him? Either what do you want to tell him, or what do you want to learn from him?
My question for you is, you talked about mistakes earlier. What have you learned about the foreign policy mistakes that George W. Bush made?
Well, he should have never gone into Iraq. And he shouldn't have gone into Iraq because the weapons of mass destruction were not there. And you know, as president, that's got to be one of the hardest moments. But he then doubled down on it and made things even more difficult for himself and for the country, and didn't explain to people why. I think as president, when the country's perceiving that you made a mistake, you need to hear them. And you need to answer their questions. You know, maybe that's part of my training as a lawyer. I look at a jury and I see when they're not believing something, when they're not getting something. Well, then I got to answer their question. If I don't answer the question, they're not going to believe me. And I think what I learned is that you need to do a lot of listening as a leader. I had a political science professor who told me one time that a leader without followers is just a guy out for a walk. And if you don't listen, you won't have followers.
What would your solution to Obamacare be?
Oh, you got to get rid of it? And I would send it all back to every state. Every state in this country is different. Every state has different challenges. New Jersey, 8.9 million people in this small space. New Hampshire, 1.3 million people in the same size space. How could their health care challenges be the same? They're not. And you know what? The Constitution says that if the power's not listed in there for the federal government, it goes back to the states. I've read the Constitution. I don't see health care anywhere in there. It needs to go back to the states, and the states should have 1 year to come up with their plan, the governors and the legislatures, and then you can have the most effect on it. You live here in Nevada, you can talk to the legislature, talk to Governor Sandoval, and you'll get a plan that you agree with. And if you don't agree with it, you can go and protest about it. But if it's in Washington, forget it.
Thank you, Governor, for being here. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I reflect back to 2012 and that election. Romney did a lot of things wrong, but that image of you hugging Obama after the hurricane came through was just devastating to many of us. And I know you've addressed this, I know you've challenged it, but I tell you, that's a really tough sticking point for me personally to get over.
It wouldn't have been a sticking point if you lived in New Jersey. First of all, I didn't hug him, so let's stop with that, okay? He got off the airplane and I shook his hand like you do as a civilized human being when the President of the United States shows up in your state. 365,000 homes destroyed in 24 hours, 75% of the state without power. All of our schools closed, 51 gas stations for the entire state, no wastewater or treatment plants or water treatment plants operational. When the President of the United States comes and says we're going to help, you look at me and say, thank you, Mr. President. And if he does something right, you say, thank you, Mr. President. And when he does something wrong, you criticize him. I took an oath of office, and the people of New Jersey deserved my very best efforts to rebuild our state, and that's what we did. And so I wouldn't change a thing, Eric. I got to tell you the truth, I wouldn't change a thing. I wish it didn't happen 8 days before the election. I wish it never happened. But I'll tell you who's always said to me I did the right thing? Mitt Romney. always has said publicly and privately, I was a governor, I know what it's like. You did the right thing. You put your people first above everything else. That's the oath I took. And if you make me president, I'll put you first above anybody else in the world. And you won't have to wonder whether I'll put politics ahead of me, because I already proved I wouldn't.
What do you think of that answer?
That's very good.
In Jersey, it was a mess.
Thank you for addressing that.
You're welcome, Eric.
I want a show of hands. How many of you accept what he just said? Raise your hands.